Welcome to AMPEDCast, where we bring together the worlds of electronic dance music and storytelling. Get to know industry leaders and talent on the rise as we sit down with them to share their artist journey from behind the decks. Our community is one for artists and music lovers alike, so settle in and enjoy the experience. But yeah, welcome to Sessions.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I've been looking forward to this. Brandon Kai Castro, if y'all don't know Kai, check him out, was here and he told me how much fun he had and y'all invited me out here and I said, absolutely, I'd love to do this.
This is amazing. I know because we worked on a project. Gosh, it's been a year now, right?
Yeah, no. So it was a year. I was gone for a little while. It was over on 11th Street, I think, East 11th.
Yes, we were in East Austin.
Yes, yeah, and that was a good one. Very similar vibe to this. A really good chance to bring a lot of creatives together and kind of fitting the space. But then I think this is the next evolution. I think it's been beautiful so far.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's kind of dive in. You've been making music like how long now have you been?
So I've been DJing for over a decade, about 12 years since college. And then I've been making music for about half that time. I was talking about with Bryce earlier that I had a goal when I started DJing that I said, I want to become a good DJ first, because it was nowadays everybody with a computer and a brain and YouTube and enough time can become pretty good at DJing with your computer, because it's not like it used to be with analog hardware where you need all this equipment that's extremely expensive. The bar to entry is much lower than it used to be. And I think as a result of that, the craft of DJing suffered. And so something that was important to me was diving into the field of DJing and really getting good at curating to listeners, curating a music selection and having that ability to perform live in a way that was unique was extremely important, because you're more than the sum. That's how you become more than the sum of your work. Nowadays with Spotify, with the AI on Spotify, the algorithm, it knows you better than you know yourself, and it's going to play music in such a way that you're going to be amazed. How can I beat that algorithm? That's what I want to do when I play live, is how can I do something in such a way that you couldn't hear this any other way?
Oh, I love that. Because Spotify is so good. I'm like, how'd you know I'd love that track? How'd you know? And so I'm super excited that you're have that mission to bring that joy to people, to bring that
100%.
Through your music.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so let's take it back. I love that you when I read your bio, you said you enjoy blending traditional music with modern. Yeah. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so for production, and this is something that I think is very difficult with dance music, because a lot of the elements we're using are synthetic. We're using a lot of synths. We're using a lot of all the different components. It's all computer generated. Everything I make is on my Mac, and other than when I plug in analog hardware or anything like that, the thing that humans that we crave, I mean, it's built into us just how we evolve socially, is we need those elements. What does a human recognize? So something that you subconsciously recognize is the sound of rain, the sound of wind, the sound of a human instrument, the sound of a human singing. And that's why, generally speaking, you never see instrumental tracks charting really well, because they don't have those bits and pieces that we subconsciously connect to. The things that you will hear a track and immediately, without knowing why you like it, know you like it. And so how do we cut through that fog, essentially, is by incorporating these elements. And so every track I use in some way, shape, or form is going to have something like that. There's tucked away, I promise, there's either wind, maybe a little forest with rain, some thunder and lightning, sounds of the city streets, all sorts of different stuff. So I can kind of give you those things that help you feel at ease, at peace with stuff, because it's just, if you hear something, and it's just how we're programmed, if you hear something that is 100% to the metronome correct, you're not going to like it. And you're not going to be able to tell me why you don't like it. You're just going to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with that song. I think the melody's good. I think the bass sounds great. I think all these different elements sound fine. But there's something off about that song. And it's because it's not human. And so how do we incorporate that human bit? And for me, I think something you were talking about was I started out playing the viola when I was a child. So I've been doing that since I was 8. I still do it sometimes. I played it once or twice for my wife, Michelle. She'll tell you.
Aw.
She'd probably like it more than once or twice.
Did you serenade her?
Once or twice. So I'm not gonna try to oversell it and tell you I did like a dozen times, because it was only once or twice. But I love doing that because playing by yourself with a viola is, you can figure out the sonic range and all these different things, because the viola is, in an orchestra, it's very rarely the star of the show. So it's the bass instrument of the upper range.
Okay.
So we have the violins. They're the prima donnas.
Yeah.
So any violin players out there, you're the prima donnas. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you the truth. Then you have the cellos, those are the workhorses. Your cellos, like, everybody knows cello. You're like, it's beautiful. It's in so many great movies, Master and Commander, all that stuff. Then you have your basses, which are carrying your low end. And then the violas are that middle range. And it's very interesting, because rarely do the violas get to be the star of the show. Mm. It's oftentimes that you just are kind of working behind the scenes, making sure that everything's glued together.
Like a harmony.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Harmonizing from either the bass side or the melody side.
Okay.
So that's the kind of interesting thing, is the viola is very unique in that it plays both sides of the fence. We do both the bass side and the melody side.
Oh, well, that is incredible. So, like, it's really cool to hear that you came from like a traditional music background, or you've had something. So when did you get inspired into, like, what inspired you to get into dance music? How did you go from viola to Dex?
So I have a lot of my childhood friends and stuff, and we used to, for my birthdays, they'd come over. A lot of them showed up tonight, and I really appreciate y'all coming out. And one of the times, a friend of mine, it was during the golden age of YouTube, when, like, it was nice and whimsical and not scary like it is nowadays. And we were listening, and I was probably a sophomore in high school or something, so 17 years ago. And he said, "Hey, I found this music. You have to check it out." And he plays a song, "Ecstasy" by ATB, very famous German producer. Very, very good song. And I swear we listened to that song probably 20, 30, 40 times that night. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh, this music's so good. Because it was, let's be honest, no one's listening to orchestral music nowadays. No one's going out and saying, like, hey, give me some Tchaikovsky. Like, let's put that on. That's what your parents and your grandparents do. Probably your grandparents, let's be honest. And so how do we bridge that gap and bring that feeling forward into the modern era? And that's kind of, for me, what trance music, which is ATB representative of, does. It's you're incorporating these soaring melodies, this feeling, this euphoric ability to, like, make the parts much more than the whole, and have that emotional experience as you're listening to music. And for me, don't get me wrong, for all my techno people out there, I do love the grunginess, the dirtiness, and the beats and the groove that techno brings. Like, it's all about finding the balance. That's the most important thing. But that ultimate emotional high that trance gives you, the ability to, like, look at somebody that you're next to. I almost feel like, for me, when I listen to trance music, like, it's empowering in the sense that, like, when you're listening and you hear some, like, a melody that's, like, truly progressed and built well, I'm like, oh, I could conquer the world. I want to do something. I could look at somebody and say, like, it's such a head rush and gives you so much, like, euphoric high from that. And I think that's ultimately rooted back to what we were talking about earlier in the evolution, like in orchestra and all these different ways that we kind of work as a team. And that's what these in electronic in this genre are doing, is using all these elements to make something that's so much bigger than the parts.
Oh, that's incredibly well. Like, that's so true. And I feel the same about trance music. It really does bring that emotion to the forefront. I want to dive into something that makes you really unique, that you told me a story about. And it is something that, you know, it just, like, you put two things together that wouldn't normally go together. Yeah. Now, you currently are serving in our military.
Yes. So as many of the producers in the room, all of the artists, the creatives know, it's very hard to pay the bills with music. And so I chose, when I was in college, before college, I chose to serve in the Army. I've been doing that for almost a decade now. And it's something that I wanted to do, was balance that creative side of myself, because it's a switch. I cannot, well, sorry, it's not a switch. It's a switch stuck in the on position. I can't turn it off. I can't stop doing this. My wife knows. She was probably so happy when my parents gave me a pair of headphones for my studio, a pair of open ear headphones for my studio for my birthday while I was overseas, because now I'll make music and she can't hear it. So I've been overseas 3 times. I actually just got back from serving overseas for about 8 months, roughly a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I went over, I always called it self-help purgatory, because you get to choose whether or not you want to make something out of it in a positive way. So what these are is, you have your job, you're doing stuff, all that, but you do have a lot more free time. Imagine if you never had to commute. Imagine if you never had to cook your own meals. Imagine if you never had to do your own laundry. Imagine if the gym was 3-minute walk from your bedroom door. All these things, like it adds up. You suddenly find yourself with probably like 3 hours of free time every single day.
Wow.
And so what are you going to do with that free time? And a lot of people, and that's the challenge. That's why there's a lot of mental health issues that come from military overseas deployments, is because a lot of people don't know what to do with that free time. And so for me, I kind of come to terms with, hey, I'm not there with my wife. I'm not there with my family. I'm not there with these people that I want to spend time with, or I want to do stuff with. I still talk to them. I still FaceTime with them. All these things that technology does for us. But what am I going to do instead? And so for me, the fallback is my number 2, my computer with my music.
Yeah.
And so every time I've been overseas, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Europe, and I've been to the Middle East a second time. And I really worked hard on music. Really, really worked hard. The first time, kind of cut my teeth on Logic. For anybody who has opened up specifically Logic, out of all the ones, I feel like Logic's just like, hey, welcome to hell. And there is no manual.
No, Logic is this a software? Logic,
the software.
Okay.
I feel like Logic is the bar to entry is so much higher. Like Ableton is probably the most user-friendly. And then Logic's just like, we don't like you.
Well, it is crazy because like I even messed around with Ableton once, and I looked at it, and I mean, I have a background in graphic design, and I was like, oh, it's like Adobe. No. Mm-mm. I was like, what do I do with this? Yeah. So I could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
so I went there, didn't have a lot of stuff to go off of, figured out how to do some things, and then I went back to Europe, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna be really serious about this, and got better. And then I went back this most recent time, and I was like, we're really putting this together. And so I just started just nugging away, got a couple courses, powered through these courses. A lot of the courses nowadays, if you do your research, they really do help. So for those who are aspiring to do that, there are some good stuff out there. Reorder does a lot of good ones for trance music. I can't speak to techno. I'm sure you know a lot more than I do. I promise you do. And then a couple others like Hyperbits has a great one that's just great for the fundamentals and stuff like that. And I just put it, and then after that, it's on you to do the work, and you just go and go and go, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because I think it's so against our nature. Because I mean, especially as Americans, we really want to be perceived as good as what we do. And let me tell you, some of these people out here could tell you some of the first like mashups I made, some of the first productions I made, they were terrible. They'll probably, like, now that I'm saying it, they'll tell you, but before they'd be like, no, it sounded great. But no, they were terrible. I promise.
Isn't that part of the creative process?
It absolutely
I mean,
is.
like,
absolutely
even my first podcast episodes, guys, they were bad.
Absolutely. But I think it's one of those things. It's about like, how do you put yourself out there knowing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us struggle with that fear of knowing, like, even with the highest level of preparation, you're still probably not going to meet the bar, or people are going to be polite about it, everything. But it's just hard. It's hard being vulnerable is the real answer. You are being vulnerable in the sense that, like, everything that I play for y'all tonight is a lot of stuff people have never heard before. And it's the truest window to my soul. Like, these are the things that I was making while I was overseas for 8 months. Like, these are like, there's parts where I was sad that I really missed Michelle, my wife. There are parts that I was really happy because we had reached some milestone. There were parts that, like, maybe I was bored. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's like, ultimately, it's all windows to my soul. And the hardest part about that And what you have to come to accept about yourself as an artist is that not everyone's going to like it.
Yeah.
Like that's impossible. And then second, it's okay. It's okay because there's going to be some people that really do love it and really do enjoy it. And it really is hard. And no matter how many times I play songs, it is hard when somebody like you can tell they aren't as happy about it as you would expect.
What do you do in those moments? Like for other artists out here, other creatives, when you have a moment where someone gives you kind of the ick face, like what do you do in that situation to keep yourself not falling into that mindset, but just like to know that, it's like maybe they feel that way, but that doesn't define you?
I think it's about ultimately speaking to yourself because the key thing and is you and the vibe that because you already have the bully pulpit, to borrow a political term. You're the person up there, you're playing the music and what you're doing. So if you see that ick face and you kind of fall into it and say, oh, well, I guess a lot of these people don't like the music, and then you just kind of like delving down that hole, then you're going to lend yourself to that train. Whereas if you play the stuff that speaks to you and that you really enjoy and you really connect with, and then you start vibing, you start having a good time on stage, I guarantee people, because it's infectious.
It is.
Like it's really hard for us to see somebody having a blast and then not have a good time ourselves.
It's so true. It's like you have to almost own it and go up there and like rock it. Like even any medium that you're working on, music, podcasting, painting, whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing anything live or doing anything where you're on the stage, just go up and own it. You know, it's really so true for any type of art form.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you have something special for us today. I know that you wrote a song last night, right?
I did. No, it wasn't last night. We finised it last night.
You finished it last night.
So we'll get to that.
Okay.
Because something about, for me with trance music is it's about the storytelling.
Yeah.
Getting back to my orchestral roots. So we're not going to be slamming you in the face with 138 BPM tracks right off the rip. So we're going to paint the picture. We're going to tell the story. And then if I fit it in, I fit it in. I hope I do. I'll probably be able to. I'm decent at DJing. And we'll see we'll see how we get there. And I'm excited for it because I think it sounds pretty good. I think it passes the smell test to put it in a most basic phrase. But I'm excited about a lot of the other stuff that we're going to hear too. So I'm really looking forward to it and really excited to share all this stuff because I mean it's been a while. It's been a long time coming, and I think the worst thing that you can do is make these things and then just kind of sit on them.
Oh, that is so true. You got to put it out there. And I remember when we last talked, it was right. It was when we did that gig together in East Austin. It was right before you left.
Yep.
And I remember I was like, I got to get you back on the stage. And here we are.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. Before we wrap up, I want to do a few questions from our headliner hot seat.
Oh.
Headliner hot seat. So just answer these questions is very top of mind. First thing that comes to mind. All right. What is a challenge you faced in your career that you were forced to overcome?
I think it's the balance. I talked about it earlier is how do you balance? Because I can tell you, because there's a lot of stereotypes in the military about like, hey, what do officers in the military, what do you do? And it's like, have you either picked up your hunting hobby or your home brew hobby? And nowhere does it say, do you want to be an underground DJ who like plays in your clubs all throughout Austin or across the world? Like, no, that's not one of the hobbies listed. So when you go in at work and tell people that, it took a while because the first like couple times telling people that, they look at you real funny. They're like, oh, so you just go do blow when you're, not supposed to do blow. And it's like, no, I don't do that because I follow the same rules y'all do.
Yeah.
But this is something that speaks to me. And it is hard because there's a lot of work side stigma that comes with it. I think it's getting better with time, but it still is something that was difficult to overcome at first.
Well, I appreciate your honesty with that question. And second question is, what is a key to success for you?
Ooh, I think good mental space and understanding that a lot of setbacks are part of the process. And I think so many people expect, and we talked about this a little while ago, so many people expect that you're going to wake up one day and be producing a record that sounds like Armin van Buuren, Tiesto, Hardwell, Martin Garrix, Marshmello, Nightmare, pick your artist. and not realizing that the reason they sound like that is because they've been producing for 2/3, sometimes more of their life. And understanding that everything that you're doing is part of the process. And I'm going to share this bit that I got. So last year, Ruben Iran was in Austin for a show, and I got to talk to him. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what's the number one thing you would tell any inspiring musician, artist, etc.? And he said, don't give up. And he said, if you do not give up, I promise eventually you're going to get there. And it may be in a way that you didn't expect, but you're going to get there.
I love that. That is great advice. Well, this has been, again, a great conversation. How can people get plugged into your music?
Thank you. Yeah. So if you want to follow me on socials, it's DJ Makoom, Makoom. I would love to, after we're done here, if anybody wants to get plugged in, I would encourage y'all, if y'all go to my link tree off of that Instagram, there's a newsletter you can subscribe to. So I put out a newsletter once a month. It has little like updates, little tips and tricks, like music stuff. For any sort of music producers, I give a tip every month. Sometimes it's your amalgamous stuff, but sometimes it gets very technical. Like I'm going to say, hey, why does your song sound muddy in the low end? Well, we're going to talk about separating your sub and your kick and how you do that, and where are the best recommendations you can do. And I get extremely technical. And I invite you, of course, to send me emails off of that link tree. Please get in touch. I would love to help y'all, because I think that a lot of people think of music as like winners and losers, but music is fortunately a infinite space. There's always space for more creativity, because no matter how much I try to make a song like Kay, I'm not going to make a song like you will. Yeah. Just like no matter how much you try to make a song like anybody else in this room, you're not going to be able to do it, even if you try to mimic it.
Oh, that is so well said. Well, I'm super excited. Yes, give him a follow. And for your final question today, what is most inspiring to you today?
Well, I think honestly, my wife, who never listened to dance music before we met, and really dove in head first, is pretty impressive. So I think that shows. I appreciate how much support she gives to me in this, because it really is one of those things that I couldn't do it without her. I could really like the willingness that when really Sunday, when I said, hey, I want to try to finish this song in time for Tuesday. And she's like, without saying a word, says, I'll get all the groceries done. I'll do all the chores at the house so that you can literally just sit down and power this song out. Aww. And then on Monday, when I wasn't done, she kept doing stuff and helped me help pick up the slack to get it done. And especially knowing that it's not like it's for work. It's not like my boss called me. This is just me trying to do something special for y'all.
Teamwork makes the dream work, guys. That is great. Well, definitely give Makoom a follow. Give us a follow at Amplify EDM. Check us out on YouTube, and be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes like this. Give him a round of applause, guys.
There you go.